With smartphone gimbals, you want powerful stabilization and improved max payload and a lightweight unit. This allows you not only to easily use it, but pair it with the latest smartphones. With the release of the Zhiyun Smooth Q3, we have not only that, but an assortment of creative features to help you get better footage. Now the question is always, is it worth upgrading for? I'm James Hertz from MUO, and we're going to talk about the features of the Zhiyun Smooth Q3 and whether you should consider purchasing it. When first looking at the Smooth Q3, you'll notice it's a drastic design departure from the Smooth Q2. Instead, it seems to take design inspiration more from the Smooth XS, while also evolving it. So what we have with the Smooth Q3 is a familiar matte plastic with a division between a light gray and a dark gray to guide your eyes along to the crucial aspects of the gimbal for operation. At the very top, you do have that familiar rubber gripping so it can hold your phone steadily. Now, besides the plastic body, let's talk a little bit about the actual sizing of the Smooth Q3. When folded up, it's only 180 millimeters in length, and when you do expand it, it comes out at 279 millimeters. So it's still small enough that it will fit in most of your personal belongings, but it won't quite fit into your pocket perfectly. Now, when it comes to the ergonomics of the Smooth Q3, it's a notable difference once again. So rather than the cylindrical grip of the Smooth Q2, we have a more plastic form-fitting grip like with the Smooth XS. So while the Smooth XS was not perfect in its grip, what we do have with the Q3 is one that's much more designed towards all aspects of your hand. So when holding the unit, it comfortably fits your entire hand, even if you have a larger pair like mine, and allows you to easily gravitate towards the grouped buttons at the very center of the Smooth Q3. So let's talk a little more about the operational use of the buttons. With the Smooth Q2, you originally had to run your hand down the body of it to operate all the functioning buttons on it. With the Smooth Q3, we have it all neatly placed here at the very center location just above the handle. So you have your joystick, your mode button, and your record button there. To the device's left, you have the zoom rocker, and to the device's right, you have the USB-C charging port. At the very rear, we do have the power button at the very top, and beneath it, the trigger button to control a lot of the Smooth Q3's essential functions. Now, the two remaining aspects to compare with the Smooth Q2 is its weight and its actual payload capacity. Now, with the Smooth Q2, it originally came in at 380 grams without its battery. Now, the Smooth Q3 has an internal battery and still manages to weigh only 340 grams, or about 3/4 of a pound. So it is a very lightweight gimbal that can go with you on demand. So let's talk about the two gimbals' payloads. Now, with the Smooth Q2, it had a max payload limit of 260 grams. With the Smooth Q3, we have a minimum payload limit of 150 grams and a maximum of 280 grams, so a 20 gram increase. So to test this, I went with an array of cell phones at different weight ranges. I took my old Samsung Galaxy S7, which weighs just above the minimum threshold at 152 grams. I then took a Google Pixel 3 XL, which weighs at 184 grams. And then I took the Infinix Hot 10S, which weighs at 211 grams. The Smooth Q3 was able to balance all of these successfully without any trouble. Now, the only thing you need to keep in mind if you're approaching the payload limit with bigger phones is if you do add an external lens, this is a factor to keep in mind. Now, let's talk about how easy it is to balance your phone on the Smooth Q3. Now, once your phone is securely in between the phone clamp, what you're going to want to do is have your phone in landscape mode. From here, you're going to push the phone to the left or right until it finds a center of balance and is pretty stable with the ground. Now from here, you can adjust the other axis by either moving the phone clamp up or down if you're still in landscape mode, or you can do the easier route and move it to portrait mode and then start moving it to the left or right until you find balance. Now, if you don't get this perfect, you don't really have to worry. The motors on the Smooth Q3 are pretty strong and will maintain normal operation. Now, the only trade-off is this may affect your battery life and the motors may not be as strong as they need to be. So for instance, if this phone was unbalanced and I moved the phone into an underslung shot, it may be a case where the motors won't cooperate and I'll have to cut off the Smooth Q3 and then rebalance it slightly to fix that adjustment. Now let's talk about battery life and charging with the Smooth Q3. So as previously mentioned, at the right of the unit is the USB-C port. So when you plug it in, you'll see the indicator lights just above the mode button fill up until they're full to indicate the charge. So the Smooth Q3 typically has a standard runtime of 7 hours, but it can achieve up to 15 hours. Now in testing, what I did was I did a balance of just running the gimbal, so it had standard stabilization on just holding the phone out for several hours and doing active use. Amongst this, I saw the bar only go down one single bar over a course of 7 hours. Now, one of the convenience features that's a major part of the Smooth Q3 is its included rotatable touch light. So this 180-degree rotatable LED fill light really will give you smooth lighting if you're shooting in a darker setting, especially if you're doing content for Instagram Reels or TikTok. Now there are some variables to keep in mind with it. First off, you need to rotate this light to the left. If you try and rotate it to the right, it won't work. Another thing is, because of the design of the Smooth Q3, you cannot use it in portrait mode when it's using your front cameras. So if you're trying to get a vertical shot with your front facing cameras, you can't use the light for this. It's obviously meant to be more of a selfie light, and it works especially well for that. The touch is responsive, but you need to make sure you have it on the actual icon or it won't register it. Now, you turn it on by holding it for 1.5 seconds and you turn it off the same way. It does come with 3 brightness levels, so simply tap the icon to adjust between these. If you are shooting at night, it's a very nice tool, but again, not crucial, but really nice to have if you're doing something for Reels or TikTok. Before talking about the stabilization of the Smooth Q3, let's talk about a few things to keep in mind. First off, whenever you do turn on the Smooth Q3, it's going to load up in portrait or vertical shooting. It will also default the pan follow of its modes. So let's go there and talk a little bit about its modes. There's pan follow, lock, follow, and point of view by default. If you do go past point of view by tapping the mode button once, then you're going to enter vortex mode. Now I want to make a separate note here with vortex mode because it is the only mode that's slightly disappointing me. With the roll axis, there is some limitation on how far it can go. While you can still get the vortex shot effectively with the Smooth Q3, it's not as great as I wanted it to be. Now, in terms of all the other modes, it's really effective to just swap between them by either single pressing or double pressing the mode button to advance or go back between the previous modes, so you can swap to whichever one is needed on demand. There is also a phone go mode, which allows you to follow a fast moving subject. To enable this, you just have to hold the trigger button at the front of the Q3 and follow your subject. As with previous Zhiyun gimbals, there is some button functionality that's exclusively tied to the ZY Cami app. So if you aren't in the ZY Cami app, you're not going to be able to use the record button or the zoom rocker for your default phone camera. Another thing to keep in mind is you cannot single press the trigger button to enable Smart Follow because that is a ZY Cami exclusive feature. You can still double press the front trigger button to reposition your phone, and you can also triple tap it to swap between landscape and portrait mode. Now, with the ZY Cami app in mind, let's talk a little bit about it. It's still a bit of a mixed bag in terms of results. There's some bugs and glitches that you're going to have to deal with. As a positive, the beauty mode, the panoramic modes, the clone panoramic mode, and the actual smart templates work really well and easily. So if you're trying to get footage and you're not really good at getting that kind of shot, these can be good guidance points to help you get really pretty footage. Now, I do want to talk about Smart Follow. As previously mentioned, you can single press the trigger button on the Smooth Q3 to enable or disable Smart Follow. Now, sometimes it does work really well, and I will say it does track for a longer period of time than I did experience in the past, but it still can't always keep up, and sometimes it will randomly glitch out. If you do have a subject matter walking beside you, it will probably lock onto that, and if you don't actually go at a slower pace, it's more likely to fall off. So this is a bit problematic as its actual focus point is to track a hard moving subject, but if you're doing something like a casual TikTok or a reel and you're just vertically showing yourself, you can learn to actually move with the tracking box, but again, it's not really tracking you, it's more you being conscientious of its position. But overall, I am glad that you can tap the trigger to re-enable it, so it's a lot easier to effectively use it if you're really trying to lock onto a footage, you lose it, and you want to re-enable it again. Within the ZY Cami app, there's also ultra wide angle zoom as well as instant dolly zoom. With instant dolly zoom, it does suffer from the automatic tracking method and can make achieving this effect a little difficult, but if you do have a singular subject without a lot of background noise behind it, you can still achieve the instant dolly zoom effect, but it may be a bit of a journey getting there. In terms of the ZY Cami app's gesture control, you still have the option to follow and shoot the subject or just shoot, period. So if you're trying to initiate footage via just a gesture, it does sometimes register, but sometimes it doesn't. If you're patient and you repeat the gesture, it's still a great method to achieve hands-free recording, but again, you may have to repeat it a few times. Let's talk about stabilization and the Smooth Q3. So whether you're shooting with your phone's native camera or you're using the ZY Cami app, you're going to get mostly stable footage. The exception to this is when testing, I would notice there is some jitter and the motors would have to compensate for it. Now, when you consider this is largely a budget gimbal that's aimed at short footage for TikTok and Instagram Reels, this is largely forgivable. And also, if you really do need to get stable footage, you can still achieve this with the Smooth Q3, but you might need to modify your approach. For the question of whether you should purchase the Smooth Q3, the answer is yes, but with some stipulations. If you're after an ultra lightweight gimbal that's both budget friendly and portable that can go with you on demand, the Smooth Q3 is an excellent choice. However, if you're unwilling to deal with some ZY Cami app bugs and you cannot deal with some design limitations, then you may want to consider otherwise. But for most, the Smooth Q3 is an excellent option to get stable footage on demand. A big thanks to Juin for providing the Smooth Q3 testing unit and for you watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below and leave a like and subscribe if you will. If you want a more detailed review, be sure to check out the written review at makeuseof.com and enter our giveaway for your own chance to win a Smooth Q3.